Welcome everybody to the second episode of the Jake the Wookiee Show. I am Jake the Wookiee, and hopefully you checked out my first episode and you decided to give me another listen. I talk about anything from Star Wars to comics, movies, beer, whatever I want to talk about. And I'll start off the show this week with my beer pick of the week. This week, my pick is the Irish classic, that is Guinness. I had some at the pub the other night, and it's a beer you can't go wrong with. It's a Irish dry stout, and it's delicious. And the funny thing is, I was actually doing some research on Guinness, and studies claim that it may actually be beneficial for your heart, and it's full of antioxidants, and it actually has less calories than a glass of milk, orange juice, or even a lot of light beers. So if you're worried about your health, why not drink a good beer? Drink some Guinness. For a long time, Irish ads, ever since the 1920s, even claimed that Irish is good for your health. They had the slogan, Guinness is good for you, which, might have been just a ploy, just like how they used to say cigarettes are good for you in old advertising campaigns, but I actually believe it. Guinness is, it's good. It's got some protein, antioxidants, a little bit of everything. Some people even say it's a meal in a glass. But the other thing about Guinness, this year you got to drink as much Guinness as you can because the process of making it is changing completely by the end of this year. They are making Guinness drinkable for vegetarians and vegans now because during the process they use what is called isinglass, which is obtained from fish bladders, and they use it to filter out the yeast particles. So they figured out a new filtration process. They're getting rid of their old tradition of using a fish bladder, which I think is stupid. You vegans and vegetarians need to figure out another beer to drink. I'd appreciate it, because I like Guinness the way it is. So, hooah! In other beer-related news this week, I was actually doing some research on the internet and stumbled upon an article by Matt Novak. He writes for Gizmodo, and it was actually about the guy who helped invent Miller Lite, or the branding behind it. He also did some of the branding for the Marlboro Man, and his name was George Weissman. He worked for Philip Morris, and the man that may have invented Miller Lite and the Marlboro Man, two American great icons, he may or may not have been accused of being a communist. He died back in 2009, but the FBI has files for him dating back to the 40s, all about keeping track of him on his communist activity. And Matt Novak, who wrote the article, did a little freedom of information poll on all these files, and just found that he just went to random communist hot spots, I guess, talked to other communists, which is random. And then he even ended up on Richard Nixon's enemy list, which, Nixon was a moonbat, so he had a huge list of people he thought were enemies, and George Weissman was on it as well. So it's just a, little interesting fact, two American staples, the first light beer ever, and the Marlboro Man, invented by a communist. Well, he may or may not have been a communist, who knows. But those are kind of, it's the first portion of the show, talking about some beer and stuff. But for the rest of the show, I'm going to do a little special countdown. I'm going to be ranking the Star Wars movies. My personal rank, of course, so everyone's ranking differ, so if you don't like my rankings, too bad. You have your own ranking. But I'm going to start off with my number 7 pick, and this ranking excludes, the Clone Wars animated movie, just keeping with only live action movies. So starting off, my obviously number 7, I'm going down. We'll go up to my favorite Star Wars movie. But so number 7 got Attack of the Clones. And I'm ranking this movie as my least favorite Star Wars movie because the acting is atrocious. Except for, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, who is the shining part of the prequel trilogy. But Anakin Skywalker, man, your acting is bad in this movie. The romance parts between you and Padme is just bad. And out of all the movies, honestly, I feel like this movie has dated the worst. It was right at the cusp of some new digital technology, and they shot almost this entire movie with a lot of green screens. There was hardly any built sets for this movie, and a lot of the lighting doesn't make sense. There's this weird overhead lighting for a lot of the shots, and it just looks weird. A lot of the movie just looks weird. Or now, digital technology, you can hardly recognize the difference when it's melded with practical effects like in The Force Awakens. But yeah, Attack the Clones, I still enjoy it. I still enjoy all Star Wars movies, but I'm just ranking this one as my lowest for now. And just because it is interesting with the whole mystery spin, Obi-Wan's kind of like a detective trying to get to the bottom of who's trying to assassinate Padme, and the whole uncovering of the clone plot and all that. It's all interesting, but really, there's not really a lot that happens in this movie until the very end. It would have been cool if they would have had the giant battle between all the Jedi and droids maybe last a little longer, be a little more of a focus in the movie rather than just kind of an afterthought. It happens at the end, and then the battle with Dooku. Dooku's barely on screen for this whole movie, which is kind of weird. But it is cool to see Yoda finally fight in this movie. Gets rid of his cane, and then all of a sudden he's doing crazy acrobatic stuff. It's wild. It's wild, let me tell you. But, yeah. That's probably my least favorite Star Wars movie. Still enjoy it, of course, but, it is what it is. Now I'm going to move on to my number 6 pick, and that is The Phantom Menace. This is highly regarded as one of the most hated movies of all time, just because of a certain character named Mr. Jar Jar Binks. Yeah. But, it is what it is. This movie came out in 1999. I was right about the same age as Anakin Skywalker in this movie. So, this movie was aimed towards me. And all the old fans need to realize that. George Lucas was not making this movie for the original fans of Star Wars. He was like, I'm making this movie for the new kids, the new generation of Star Wars fans. And it worked because it got an entire new generation in love with Star Wars. So it is what it is, But Phantom Menace, I enjoy it, It's got Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, which is awesome. He's an amazing Jedi, super wise. Liam Neeson brings his A game as always. He never puts in a bad performance. He could be even in the worst movie like Taken 3, and it's still Liam Neeson doing his thing. And which is cool about this movie is they still did a lot of miniature work and a lot of practical effects as well as integrating some of the digital technology, which, Jar Jar, he looks a little dated now. Some of the full CGI characters look a little dated, but, movie came out in 1999. The technology has way improved since then. Let me take a little drink of my coffee here. I'm recording this in the morning, so can't be drinking beer in the morning. Drinking some coffee. But continuing on, talking about Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You got Darth Maul, who's awesome. It was majorly disappointing after the huge marketing campaign with him in it that he's only in the movie about maybe 10 minutes, if that. He speaks maybe 3 lines of dialogue. Yeah, so the big bad of the movie, I don't know, the movie is called The Phantom Menace. Who is the Phantom Menace? Is it Anakin Skywalker? Is it Palpatine? Who is it? Who's the Phantom Menace? It could be multiple ways, George Lucas got us thinking. So, yeah, it's the Phantom Menace. It's cool, Queen Amidala has all these crazy outfits. The whole, we finally get our first glimpse at the Old Republic, which is cool to see. It's, highly romanticized, kind of a classical period, where you compare to, classical Japan or classical Greek, where they're, in full-on robes and stuff. Everything's clean, unlike the original trilogy where everything's dirty and stuff like that. The droids, though, they're nothing great. They're no stormtroopers, that's for sure. Army of Gungans took out, they didn't take them out. A little kid, Anakin Skywalker, took out their control center up in space. Otherwise, all those Gungans may have died. Who knows? But, yeah, it's the Phantom Menace. Ranking at number 6 on my list. Alright. Number 5 on my list is what I consider the best out of the prequel movies, and that is Revenge of the Sith. And this movie is awesome. Came out right when I was about a junior in high school. It also started my insane collecting of Star Wars. I was making money in high school with my job. What does a high school kid have money to spend on? I didn't save up for a car or anything. I bought Star Wars stuff. It is what it is. And Revenge of the Sith is awesome. Starts off this great space battle. You just get sucked right into it. Some of the dialogue, with Anakin's, a little cheesy. It is Hayden Christensen after all. But, his banter back and forth with Obi-Wan's legit. They quickly go in, save Palpatine, dispatch Dooku. It kind of sucks that in all the prequel movies, Dooku's hardly in them, Sir Christopher Lee was an awesome actor. He brought his A game, even to a role where he's hardly in it, But it is what it is. And this movie has a lot of great battles. This movie is epic. You go from planet to planet, all these interesting planets. You meet a bunch of new alien designs. You can say what you will about the prequel movies, but George Lucas was still inventing all these creatures, all these worlds and stuff. He wanted to push the boundaries, and this movie definitely does. And again, some of the romantic parts are really cheesy in this movie, but the whole premise of having the Emperor have all the clones to betray the Jedi is a really cool idea. And the way he assumes power, he's almost like Julius Caesar, turning the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. So there's a lot of, political stuff, of course, at the time in America. Some of that made its way into the movie. It's what George Lucas does, So a lot of the ideas of this movie are really cool, and it's, awesome to see Anakin Skywalker turn into Darth Vader. It's dark, man. Dude, burns. He burns alive. Gets all crusty. And the moment where Darth Vader's helmet, whoosh, and then he starts breathing, oh man, I get chills every time I watch that part. The subsequent no afterward kind of, brings down that feel-good moment. But still, seeing Darth Vader there is awesome. Seeing him at the end of the movie on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, it's awesome. And all the lightsaber battles are really cool. They're really crazy and choreographed, You have Anakin and Obi-Wan twirling their lightsabers for no reason at one point, not even hitting each other, but it's crazy. And Mustafar, the lava planet, looks cool. You know, sucks that, you don't get to see Anakin Skywalker turn to the dark side for very long. One minute he's good, next minute he's slaughtering a bunch of kids at that Jedi temple. There's not a lot of character progression there. They should have maybe started the prequel trilogy at where Attack the Clones was. Episode 2 could have been a movie all about the Clone Wars and see Anakin Skywalker, his descent into the dark side. And then Episode 3 be him be dark side the entire movie and then become Darth Vader at the end. That's just what I would do, but I'm not George Lucas. I didn't have say at all in this movie. I don't have the money for it. But yeah, that's where I'll rank episode 3. And, it ends smoothly. Nice transition. You get the sunset of the twin suns on Tatooine to, perfectly mirror A New Hope, which is cool. So there's a lot of cool little nods to the original trilogy in this movie. So it's cool. Now, moving on to my number 4, which ironically is episode 4. I may get, a lot of flack for putting A New Hope this low in my list, but, I'm going to. It is, the original Star Wars, so without this movie, there is no Star Wars, which, as a kid, I probably watched this one the least amount out of the original trilogy, so that's probably why I'm ranking it a little lower in my list, but it's still freaking Star Wars. It's a classic movie, one of the greatest movies of all time, and you can't go wrong with it. You have Sir Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. You have awesome banter with C-3PO and R2-D2. The movie basically starts off with them as the main characters, and you see them, stumble upon Luke basically. All the weird little creatures in this movie. It's such a weird movie. It's awesome. Star Wars, man. I can talk all day about Star Wars. It is what it is. Reasons why it ends up ranking lower for me out of the original trilogy is just because the lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, it looks so lame now. They're just like barely tapping their lightsabers together, kind of almost like a weird almost fencing where, in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, they're battling it out with their lightsabers, so that's the downside. But this movie, in my mind, still I think is the best space battle, just because where the other movies intercut between a space battle and lightsaber battle, the ending of this movie is just solely focused on the space battle, the trench run onto the Death Star. So that's really cool to see. It's cool to see the, chemistry between all the X-Wing fighters. Sad to see all of them die except for Wedge, but, it is what it is. And, Han saves the day at the end by helping Luke out. And Darth Vader goes tumbling out in space. So, it's a great movie, classic. So that's going to be my number 4 ranking, A New Hope. Moving on to my number 3 ranking is going to be The Force Awakens. I'm not completely blind to some of the faults of The Force Awakens, but it's still a hell of a movie. It's awesome. It's everything you hoped The Force Awakens would be, honestly. Sometimes it treads a lot of similar water as A New Hope, but it kind of had to. It basically was just like, we got to, soft reboot almost, It took everything we liked from the original trilogy, shoved it all into one movie, gave us new, great, compelling characters like Rey, Finn, Kylo Ren, BB-8, Poe Dameron, man. All these new characters are awesome. And that's what really drives this movie, is all the new characters. Just because, the plot, we got to take a droid here. you gotta look for Luke Skywalker. You gotta blow up this other gigantic planet-destroying weapon. It's all been done before. But the characters, it's what really drives The Force Awakens. Rey is a great new lead. Um, the slow parts at the beginning with her, where she's just hanging out on Jakku by her AT-AT home, making her bread, hanging out with the helmet on. That's just super cool moments for Rey. And a lot of the moments kind of mirror Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. But, she's way more tough than Luke Skywalker was. She, she doesn't take no for an answer. She does her thing. She beats people up with her staff. She quickly, she knows how to fly aircraft. She freaking flies the Millennium Falcon, and Han Solo's like, "Dang, girl!" Yeah, that's right. And Han Solo, basically thinks of her like she could be his daughter or something. But who knows if she is? That'd be messed up if she was his daughter. But we'll wait for Episode 8 to figure out who she is. But my new favorite character out of all the new characters is Kylo Ren. He's kind of everything I hoped Anakin Skywalker would have been in the prequel trilogy, where he's definitely a misunderstood, fallen Jedi who, stumbles upon, gets basically manipulated by a Darksider and Snoke into betraying everyone. And it's crazy how he talks to Darth Vader's helmet. He keeps the ashes of his enemies and puts the helmet in it. He does some dark stuff. He's a powerful dude. He stops a blaster bolt mid-air. And, he doesn't take crap from nobody. Except, Rey, who kind of beats him pretty easily. But, Kylo Ren to get shot in the stomach by Chewbacca's bowcaster. He had a giant wound there. He got, hacked a little bit with the lightsaber, battling Finn and Rey, and he was just emotionally torn. He was hoping that killing his father, Han Solo, would have taken him to the next level in his power, but it actually did the opposite. It made him weaker at that moment, so he wasn't ready for a big lightsaber duel. And it's interesting to see where his character is going to go in these next movies. Is he going to be redeemed? I doubt it, because, killing Han Solo is pretty irredeemable. But you never know what strange path he's going to take. And just the overall character design, I bought a bunch of Kylo Ren figures just because he looks cool. He's got a cool crossguard lightsaber. He's got like this kind of knight mentality. The way he twirls his lightsaber around like a broadsword. It's awesome, It's The Force Awakens. It was a monumental moment in Star Wars history. It basically, gave everyone good feelings about Star Wars again. It did what it needed to do, and I'm ranking it number 3 on my list. Let me take a quick drink of my coffee. All this talking's got me thirsty. But ranking, this was tough for me, because both of these movies at times are interchangeable at number 1 and 2. But I'm going with my number 2 favorite Star Wars movie be Return of the Jedi. And this movie is a weird movie. It starts off Jabba's palace. There's a bunch of weirdos hanging out there. Jabba freaking feeds people to the Rancor, which is awesome. I love all the awesome creatures in Star Wars. So the Rancor's up there and crazy creatures. It's got this whole kind of adventure monster movie feel while at Jabba's palace. Really shady place, Shady things going on at Jabba's palace. And Luke Skywalker shows up, force chokes fools, kills everyone on Jabba's barge, which is crazy. No one mentions. No one ever talks about that. Luke Skywalker just murders a bunch of people, He is at the edge of being on the dark side. That's why he's wearing the all black. But Yeah, Return of the Jedi. You meet Ewoks, cute, cuddly Ewoks. I don't have a problem with the Ewoks. Some people have problems with the Ewoks. Same with, this movie may have slightly been aimed more at kids in the 80s, but it is what it is. There's some awesome stuff. You got Jabba's palace, you have all the Ewoks, and then you have the biggest baddie of them all, the Emperor. You see the Emperor shoot crazy lightning, he looks creepy, and the whole end scene between Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and the Emperor is my favorite moment in any Star Wars movie. It's so epic. The dialogue, just, seeing Luke Skywalker struggle between the dark side and the light. He doesn't want to become like his father because he realized the dark side's toll on what a person can be. And, who wants to hang out with the Emperor? He's a creepy dude, Real creepy dude. That's why Return of the Jedi sometimes I can put it at my number one favorite Star Wars movie just because it has my favorite scene out of any Star Wars movie. But but I gotta think about the overall movie, the overall structure of the movie. That's why it's ending up as my number two right now. We also get a kind of different Han Solo in this movie. He's no longer the roguish cowboy who's only in it for himself, He's an actual hero in this movie. He does his thing, He helps out the rebellion. He's like the first person to volunteer to go to Endor's moon and, to take out the shield generator, which is awesome. Yeah, the Empire wasn't very smart. They're like, first Death Star didn't work. Let's just build it all over again. And, only in twice the amount of time, Emperor. You weren't thinking very well. Not at all. And that's probably why you died. So, yeah, that's why I'm ranking Return of the Jedi number two favorite Star Wars movie. It's awesome. And be sure to only watch the original version of Return of the Jedi. I have it on DVD where they took basically the print of the laser disc, and it's the original version of this movie. I also have the original version VHS where they just remastered the sound, but it's still the original version because they changed a bunch of stuff in the special edition at Jabba's palace. They changed the song, they added a bunch of weird creatures, they added CGI to the Sarlacc pit, why, I don't know. And then at the end, they have freaking Hayden Christensen there as a Force ghost, which just throws you off. You're like, what is this? And they changed the song at the end. No longer Ewoks singing, man. I love that song. That song is awesome. Instead, they have this, weird new age, kind of like, do weird music playing at the end, and it shows, all these other planets, shows like Coruscant tumbling the Emperor's statue over and stuff. None of that was needed, George, I like the original version of this movie. No Ewoks blinking, none of that stuff. I like it for what it is. 1983, awesome practical effects, creatures, is awesome, Return of the Jedi. And coming in at number one on my list of Star Wars movies is The Empire Strikes Back. And a lot of people say this is their favorite movie, and rightfully so. It is a masterpiece. It basically took everything from this first Star Wars movie and made, a much more intimate, darker, interesting story out of it. It expanded the mythology of Star Wars. You meet Yoda for the first time. You have a lot of great moments between Han Solo and Princess Leia as they're fleeing the Empire. And movie starts off really awesome. They're on Hoth. Rebels are hanging out. Luke Skywalker's just out and about. Gets attacked by Wampa. Wampa's freaking cool, man. And gets taken to his cave. But, first time you see Luke Skywalker really use the Force, pulls the lightsaber out of the ground, first moment you see that happen, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. And then Han Solo has to go search for Luke out in Hoth. And oddly enough, one of my favorite Star Wars scenes is when he cuts open the Tauntaun and shoves Luke Skywalker in there for warmth, you know. Ever since as a kid, I love that part for some reason. It's weird. I love all the weird parts of Star Wars, you know. Rancors, the weird creatures, you know, just the really weird stuff going on. So that scene always, you know, it's one of my favorites. And then the whole Luke Skywalker meeting Yoda, it's just epic. It's like, you know, going to meet your karate master and training under a old, wise Japanese man is what I say these, you know, scenes with Yoda are. You know, he wasn't what Luke Skywalker expected a Jedi Master to be. Basically, Kermit the Frog all hopped up with the Force. And you have the great climactic battle between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader at the end of this movie. And, of course, the big reveal that Darth Vader is his father, which was like one of the original first big plot twists. Now you have plot twists in movies all the time, but this was like, ba-boom! Man, that's crazy. And Lando Calrissian in this movie, hanging out with his cape, being all Lando-y, betrayed him, but now he's gonna save him. You know, he's a cool character. He's basically another Han Solo, but you know, he stays a little more rogue. Except in, you know, Return of the Jedi, he helps fight with the rebellion and all that stuff. And just the ending scene of this movie is really cool with Luke and Leia standing in front of the window, and you see all the galaxies and stuff. Really cool stuff. And of course, this movie introduced the iconic Imperial March theme, which is one of the greatest movie score songs, whatever you want to say, of all time. So yeah, Empire Strikes Back, favorite Star Wars movie. I'll give you a hint. It's also my favorite movie of all time. I cheat usually and just say the entire Star Wars original trilogy is my favorite movie. But yeah, that was my ranking of all 7 of the Star Wars movies. It'll be interesting to know where Rogue One and Episode 8 fall in. And the rumor has it that we'll get a new trailer for Rogue One coming this Friday, which should be awesome. So have a lot of Star Wars to keep looking forward to. And hopefully you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about crazy stuff. I'm a crazy person. And check me out on Twitter, at Jake the Wookiee. I put this podcast on iTunes too. You can rate me, review. It's on SoundCloud, and of course here on YouTube as well. So thank you all for listening, and may the Force be with you all.